Well, I will call to order the Board of Adjustments meeting for the City of Wilmington. Today is Thursday, June 15th, 2023. It is 1 o'clock. Before we get started, I'm going to read that hearings before the Board of Adjustments are quasi-judicial in nature. Decisions of the board are based on the records of these proceedings. To grant a variance requires a concurrent vote of 4/5 of the members of the board. To reverse or modify the determination of an administrative official requires a simple majority. Evidence submitted to the board for review becomes part of the record. Appeals of the board's decisions are to Superior Court and are based on the record. Appeals must be filed within 30 days of the date of the filings of the board's order in the Planning Division. A hearing before the board is conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure. Those who want to testify in a case are sworn as witnesses. The chairperson will recognize those who want to testify or their attorney or for presentation of evidence during the hearing. To ensure that all testimony is properly recorded, please come forward to address the board, state your name, address, and speak clearly. Our first item is the approval of minutes from the May 18th, 2023 meeting. There has been some question regarding items.
Yeah, I have two questions on the minutes. On item 2, which was 2346 Carolina Beach Road, Starway Village, said Board Member Moore made a motion to approve the variance request with the condition that the applicant must work with the city staff to reconfigure the stormwater pond and save the tree. Now, that was not my motion. I didn't make a motion on that case at all, so I voted in favor of it, but I did not make the motion.
And there was a...
And on item 8, it said that Vice Chair Moore made a motion to approve the variance request, and my motion was to deny the variance request, and the motion to deny did carry unanimously 5-0, and that was item number 8, 136 Scottsdale Drive.
Madam Secretary, I can't see you. Do you know, can you verify who made the motion in that first matter that Mr. Moore was talking about?
I believe it was supposed to say Monroe.
Monroe, okay. So what we can do is we can correct those errors, and you all can go ahead and vote on them in the minutes right now, just with those 2 corrections.
All right, so that being said, are you comfortable with that? All right, would you want to make the motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes with the corrections to item 2 and item 8 as noted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes pass with those corrections. Before we go on, we'll go ahead and have everyone sworn in that is going to speak today.
Staff, applicants, and members of the public wishing to speak today, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
In the order of new business, there's one item has been withdrawn, number 2.
The applicant is requesting to withdraw 3334 River Road because the variance is no longer necessary because the City Council adopted a code amendment that no longer requires that specimen trees in the industrial district obtain a variance from the Board of Adjustment.
All right. And there's no one here from the applicant, so
I don't
No,
believe
no,
so.
sir.
so we can go ahead and just withdraw that item?
Yes.
All right. Do you need a motion to withdraw that?
I don't think we need a motion to withdraw. I was watching a city council meeting recently where they had discussion about that, and the idea was that you can't force someone to go forward with an item that they no longer wish to go forward. So I don't believe you need a motion.
All right, so we'll bypass that on our
Yes.
agenda today. All right, thank you. All right, we'll start with item number 1. It involves 4742, 4746, 4750, and 4754 College Acres Drive, a variance to the tree preservation regarding 14 specimen trees and in the high-density dwelling, multiple dwelling residential MD-17 CD district pursuant to City Code Chapter 18, Land Development Code, Section 18-316. Chris, you want to go ahead with your presentation?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Today we have variance requests for 13 specimen trees at the property of 4742, 4746, 4750, 4754 College Acres Drive. The subject property consists of 4 vacant parcels zoned multifamily residential, MD 17 CD for conditional district. The subject property contains 13 longleaf pines that are considered specimen trees due to their size. We have 7 24-inch diameter at breast height, or DBH, 2 25-inch DBH, 3 26 DBH, and 1 27 DBH. Land Development Code Section 18-316B2 states that removal of specimen trees shall be authorized by a waiver from the Board of Adjustment. The applicant has submitted a proposal to develop the subject property with 14 dwelling units, each containing 4 bedrooms. To facilitate development of the site, the applicant states that removal of the trees is necessary because the trees are in the proposed building footprint, drive aisles, and necessary areas necessary for stormwater infrastructure. On May 5th, 2023, planning staff accepted an application for a variance to tree preservation to allow for the removal of 13 specimen trees in the MD 17 CD multiple dwelling residential district pursuant to City Code Chapter 18, Land Development Code, Section 18-316. The applicant has proposed that as a condition of approval, they must engage with a certified arborist and save trees determined to be viable and feasible to preserve, including a 39-inch DBH live oak located along College Acres Drive. I want to note that the 39-inch live oak is not a part of their removal request. The only trees that they would like to remove are longleaf pines, not this live oak. They are proposing to save that live oak tree. Preservation of the live oak tree has reduced the developable area of the site. The applicant will engage a certified arborist to employ best practice to preserve specimen trees number 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10 as shown in attachment 3. Such protective measures include aerating areas requiring fill. Per section 18-316F of the Land Development Code, removed protected trees shall be mitigated on site using the same or comparable species. Mitigation for significant specimen trees shall occur at a rate of 200%. For every 1 caliper inch of tree removed, measured at diameter at breast height, 2 caliper inches of mitigation trees shall be planted. Mitigation for all 13 longleaf pines trees require planting 646 caliper inches of comparable tree species. This matter is set before hearing before Board of Adjustment on June 15, 2023. Another item that wanted to note was that this property at one time was zoned multifamily medium density due to them, they wanted to change the site plan. So they went back before council to change the site plan what we have now and gained a conditional district out of it. If they would have stayed the multifamily medium density, they would have been considered not a legacy district, but they would not have to go through this process. But since they decided to change the zoning district and go through the CD route, they have to come before you to request this variance. This case is subject to the 4 findings of fact, and I submit all materials in this presentation into the record. Staff is available for questions, and the applicant is here as well.
All right, is there any questions so far? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's the applicant would like to come up to present.
Good afternoon, Chester Brown. I'm with 4742 College Acres. I'd like to ask that Cindy Wolf with Design Solutions be admitted to present our case.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name's Cindy Wolf. I'm a registered landscape architect and have assisted Chester and his group through this process. I really appreciate Chris's synopsis at the end, and I think I can be a little bit more clear on that. because I do think it's important to explain a brief history of how this occurred. The initial rezoning started in the mid-2021 as a third and final phase of a larger apartment complex flanking beside it and then across the road. So this early 2021 aerial shows Phase 1 in construction, Phase 2 was cleared and getting ready to start construction, and Phase 3 was in the process. As he pointed out, this was the original plan, the layout approved in October 2021. It included larger three-story buildings, certainly more parking for those buildings, and none of the existing trees within the central area could have been preserved with this particular plan. In early 2022, he decided to alter that housing style, and we started the conditional district modification process in accordance with then the updated land development code. The new plan not only reduced density and surface coverage, but it also provided for preservation of a lot more trees, and it was approved by the council in February of this year, 2023. Since the original zoning had been undertaken by a previous developer, the current owner took the responsibility of having the track resurveyed and hired a certified arborist to field inventory the exact trees. That's when these specimen trees got discovered. Generally, your approval of removing specimen trees is required prior to the review by the council. As Chris was sort of pointed out, we got caught between update of the code, an oversight of not going or coming to this board prior to the council approval, and somehow it got missed in the process, and we wanted to show that certainly some hardship results in the consideration of the amount of work that has already gone into the development effort. Design and permitting started with the engineers reviewing the stormwater management alternatives. The originally intended stormwater management procedure would have been under pavement infiltration, and that generally, in this particular case, would have necessitated a lot more grading and fill over the site, both deterrents to pre-preservation. Instead, we're now proposing surface infiltration basins spread over the open areas. We investigated shifting parking islands to capture several of the trees, and I'll go forward with this because what Chris had in his original submittal and in the intervening 45 days, we've fine-tuned a lot of things for your presentation. Although the city arborist reviews tree wells on a case-by-case basis, the reality of success is generally slim, and our arborist has informed us that the International Society of Arboriculture has eliminated them as an accepted practice. So the other thing that came into play here with some redesign was that the activities formerly in that central area that's labeled rec area have been relocated or eliminated so that we could preserve that cluster of trees that are shown there. So all of these have certainly been positive steps, but we're still here today. There are 13 longleaf pines that would be impacted by essential site improvements. Those trees on this, and it's a little bit bolder than Chris's example, are shown with the red numbers and the green text. It is obvious that trees 1 to 7, 12, and 13 are directly impacted by either building footprints or the pavement. Trees 8 to 11 will have impacts, but as a condition of approval, we would try our best to use creative protective measures during construction to preserve them. The developer's arborist would be engaged to advise and oversee activities to increase their viability. Some of the things, this is just an example, and it was something that one of the former Wilmington arborists had provided years back, but I also identified the same details on the Texas A&M University Agriculture Department, is that the problem with adding dirt over a tree's roots is that it blocks the ability of oxygen and moisture to filter down into the soil. This is an example of how that can be remedied, and selective pruning before potential impacts is also widely accepted practice. So with that in mind, we believe that trees 8, 9, 10, and 11 down at the lower right-hand side of the site. We will do our best to keep those alive and work with them during the process. But to move forward at all, we need your approval that in the event that they cannot be successfully preserved or kept safe, that they could be taken out. So in summary, those specimen trees that do need to be removed, all of them, and any that result after the fact, would be mitigated at a rate of 200% with a minimum of those replacement trees Chris described, or by payment into the city's tree improvement fund as appropriate. There are still 10 specimen trees and roughly 19 significant trees being preserved all over the site. This is certainly in the developer's best interest to preserve as many as possible with how these things affect budget and preserving them just for the purpose of aesthetics. We believe that allowing some latitude to the specific requirement of preserving all specimen trees on this particular parcel would not adversely affect the spirit, purpose, and intent of the code, nor certainly pose a public safety issue. Approval of the request variance would provide substantial justice for Mr. Brown to develop the property and mitigation of those removed trees and the installation of normally required landscaping will still enhance the aesthetics of the fully constructed project when complete. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Wolf?
In our initial packet, you also had that you were doing creative measures for trees 3, 4, and 5.
We did, but that's what I was saying. It is on a case-by-case,
Right.
but we've been told by the
Does not-
International Association that it's not the best method,
Okay.
and
And
it
then-
could result in unsafe measures.
All right, and then you added tree 11 to your saving, because that wasn't in the original one, what you were trying to creatively save.
That's correct.
Okay.
With these infiltration basins and their at least preliminary engineering review, those basins can provide enough space, we hope. And we will try with selective pruning and the fill methods to save that one.
Anybody else? Any questions? All right.
Thank you for your time.
Does the city have any other information or anything to add after the presentation from the applicant?
More from staff?
All right, thank you. We will move into going into the evidentiary hearing. We'll open this up to non-parties, and we would ask that the public present information that's competent, material, substance, and relevant and to this matter, and would you come forward, you please state your name and address. Ask anyone that would like to come forward to come at this time. All right, doesn't look like we have anyone coming forward with that. Before we come out of this, is there anything that the city would like to add? No? All right, anything, Ms. Wolf, that you would like to add? All right, any questions on the record from any of the board? All right, I'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing. Move into talking about the variances before us.
When I went and looked at the site, I mean, it's obviously consistent with the development that's around it on the same side of the street and across the street. And I went down the backside at UNC Wilmington, and it's consistent. So is the variance consistent with spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance? I think absolutely it is, because it fits in with all the properties that are around it. And I do think their proposed measures to save some trees and then mitigate the ones they need to remove is a positive.
Anybody else?
I agree with Patrick. I think they did a nice job outlining the 4 findings of fact as well.
Anybody have anything else to add?
I agree. They're saving the live oak, so I'm good with it.
All right. That being said, does anyone have a motion?
I would propose a motion that we approve the variance request for 4742, 4746, 4750, and 4754 College Acres Drive based on the 4 findings of fact.
All right, there's been a motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, that being seconded, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll move on to item number 3. Item number 3 involves 1005 Early Road. The request is for a variance for the City Code Chapter 18, Section 18-19 and 18-200 to exceed the number of accessory buildings on a bona fide farm and to exceed the allowable square footage for accessory buildings and accessory dwellings. At this time, we'll acknowledge the city for their presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'm Catherine Thurston. The request before you today is for a variance to allow an accessory dwelling unit to exceed the allowable square footage. The subject property is a 37.7 acre tract containing a single dwelling structure, an existing accessory dwelling unit, and approximately 6 additional buildings that are utilized as part of a bona fide farm that's known as Oak Point Farms. The operation and use of the subject property as a farm with multiple structures predates annexation into the city limits in 1999. It well predates annexation. The applicant has proposed an addition to an existing dwelling unit to facilitate the continued use of the space to house clients and provide meeting space in the conduct of farm-related business. I'd like to show you the approximate location of the accessory building that we're talking about is here. This is the zoning district, residential legacy. I just wanted, oh, just hoping we had a better picture of the aerial. City Code Section 18200 sets forth standards for a detached ADU and allows it to be 50% of the gross floor area of the principal structure up to 1,200 square feet. According to New Hanover County tax records, the principal structure on the lot contains approximately 5,094 square feet of living space, which would allow an ADU up to 1,200 square feet. Also based on tax records, the existing ADU contains approximately 732 square feet of living space. However, the applicant has indicated that the actual square footage of the building is 1,066 square feet. The applicant's proposal would increase the ADU from 1,066 square feet to 1,459 square feet, necessitating a variance of 259 square feet. The existing ADU does not currently have a separate address, which would be necessary for proper identification of the property for fire and life safety purposes. On or about May 3rd, the applicant submitted an application to planning staff for this variance to allow the existing ADU to have an addition and exceed the maximum allowable area of 1,200 square feet. The existing ADU is located on a corner side and it does extend closer to Airlie Road than the principal structure. However, the applicant does not intend to place the addition any closer to Airlie Road than the existing building. City Code only allows one principal dwelling on a residential lot. However, the subject property could potentially be subdivided to allow additional dwelling units on the tract. It's the applicant's intention to continue the operation and use of the property as a farm and not to subdivide the property as would be allowable by right. The city's comprehensive plan encourages the creation of ADUs and additional housing opportunities throughout the city. As well, the Wrightsville Avenue Small Area Plan specifically identifies this farm and encourages the preservation of Oak Point Farms and its agricultural farm status. This matter was set for hearing before the Board of Adjustment on June 15th, 2023. The applicant's representative is here to also give a presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on behalf of staff. And I'd like to enter the case summary into the record.
All right, does anyone have any questions at this point? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Coggins, you want to? Yep.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Coggins, and it's my pleasure to represent Oak Point Farms. The principal of Oak Point is with me, Agnes Bean, and is the driver, if you would, of this variance request. I have prepared just a couple of extra sheets here in case they are needed, and with your permission.
Yes, sir. I guess, and then you want to have her, she can hand those out for you just so she can put them. run them through?
It's been unique in my experience. I don't think I have ever represented a party in which the particular property itself is actually identified and mentioned in a land use plan. The Wrightsville Sound Small Area Plan specifically mentions Oak Point Farms as an historical property right there on the Airlie Scenic Byway, part of what makes it what it is. And a specifics policy of that plan is to support the preservation of Oak Point Farms and its agricultural farm status. It's also pointed out that on the recommended land use map. The purpose of this is, well, the cottage is dilapidated. It's 80-some years old. It does not meet code. We need to replace the electrical units in there. We want to improve the bathrooms to modern bathroom use, and that would require this addition that we're talking about. If you go, I think, and this what I've just been handed out to you here, the site plan that's on the very first tab. I think that's a nice aerial that shows the modest addition as it juts out facing Airlie, which, interestingly enough, cannot be seen from any vantage point of any neighboring property, which is those photographs which we've taken of the closest properties is at tab 6 at the very back. That would not be seen. And again, it would allow greater efficiency in having the partners of the horse farm that are based primarily in Kentucky who come often to view the horses and to make their assessments of situations and to allow for greater privacy on that. There's a particular ordinance here that provides that, yes, we were non-conforming the day this property was annexed into the city. Non-conforming in the terms of the number of accessory buildings that are allowed. 4 is allowed. There are roughly 8 there. And then, of course, we have these requirements regarding size and dimensional placement on it, the 1,200 square foot. But we have this particular ordinance here that specifically provides that with regard to an existing non-conforming use, okay, you may replace or enlarge if it doesn't create a new nonconformity or increase the extent of the setback. Here, nothing within the proposal creates a new nonconformity, nor does it increase the extent of a setback. No setback nonconformity exists here. And then, of course, what's interesting is that if we went the subdivision route, which we're entitled to as a matter of right, obviously more expensive and more drawn out, we would be able to do a subdivision here that would comply with either R15 or R20 zoning that exist here. But such would also require us going back, that would require a reassessment of the farm's agricultural property tax status incentives and could jeopardize that, which we just simply cannot countenance for the viability of the farm going forward, which is one of the reasons why we are here to seek this variance. So if I said nothing else, I want to make sure I got across these points here. I do have a PowerPoint presentation to go through, but I believe that we have on all 4s met the variance criteria and set forth an extensive way in our supplement to narrative for our variance application, which, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe I formally moved to place that into evidence, as well as the handouts I've just done, and I would do that at this time. But regarding the unnecessary hardship, and it certainly does result from conditions that are peculiar to this property. I don't know of anything more unique than Oak Point Farms.
All right.
And obviously, the applicant didn't have any role in this hardship, and that is certainly consistent with the comprehensive plan, the Wrightsville Sound Small Area Plan, the ordinances as already pointed out, and guarantees public safety and that we're not going to have a place where people are staying there with unsafe old wiring and modern conveniences, and substantial justice that you wouldn't have to go through the unnecessary subdivision process here.
All right, we'll make sure that goes into evidence. Does the city have any questions regarding that document?
No questions at this time. Thank
No?
you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have questions of Mr. Coggins at this time? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the evidentiary hearing, and we'll open it up to the evidentiary hearing to the public. If anyone is here to provide competent material and substantive evidence related to this matter, please come forward at this time. All right, doesn't look like we have anyone that will speak further. Is the city have anything you'd like to add related to this matter?
Nothing substantive, really, just to clarify that the new nonconformity in this instance would be the size of the structure, not the placement or setbacks.
Okay. Right, and then, Mr. Coggins, do you have anything extra to add at this point? We probably have some questions, but
No, nothing to add, other than the fact that there is case law that in an instance such as this, where the increase of the size is de minimis, that certainly is a factor that one can consider as being consistent with the city's ordinances.
okay, thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions while we're still in the public, the evidentiary side of this? All right, being that there aren't any, I'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing at this time, and we'll go into talking about the variance that's before us. Anyone have any thoughts?
I think, as Mr. Coggins said, by right, they can subdivide and not need a variance to do what they're proposing to do, but that, in my opinion, would take a nick out of a treasure in New Hanover County. I think what they're doing is certainly reasonable, given the property. It does protect the property, which the city and the land use plan has stated is important. So.
Anybody else have thoughts or for conversation?
Yeah, just looking at the findings of fact, there would be hardship that would result because of what they would have to do, going through subdivision and all that. There's certainly some, the property is peculiar and it's large, and so everything fits within the findings of fact.
All right, does anyone have a motion related to this matter?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the variance
All right,
based on the 4 findings of fact.
All right, there's been a motion approved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, that is our last item. Is there anything from the city at this time?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, that being the case, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.